Detroit Den 313. We're back. Stephen Will talking Detroit Lions football. Before we get going, you know what to do. Bang that subscribe button. Don't forget the bell icon so you don't miss any of our new content. Steve, tell the people what we're talking.
It's been a minute. It's been a hot minute. We're going to talk a little Edgerring Cooper, maybe throw out some other linebackers. We'll see what, just where the conversation leads us. But Edgerring Cooper, someone that very, 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 very high on our list when we started getting into this draft stuff, this prospect talk. I think like day one of the very first episodes we did on a prospects, I think Edgerring Cooper was the very first one, if I'm not mistaken. So it kind of seems like he's disappearing. And I mean that in a good way for the Lions, that maybe he slips to 29 and he's a player we can look at. So, Will, how do you feel about Edgerring Cooper from Texas A&M?
I love Edgerring Cooper. And it's one of those things to where it seems like as we've broke down some of these players, I fall in love with one, I fall out of love with another one, or I think that I have a philosophy or a rhyme or reason why I want to draft a guy or guys in certain places. And then I see a prospect and it kind of changes my thought process of the route that I want to go. I'm still locked into the theory, but exactly how I want to do it or the contingency plans get tweaked a little bit as I watch players. But Edgerring Cooper is a guy who the very first time I watched his highlight tape, I said, I'm not going to bite on that. I'm not going to bite on that. I'm going to go watch some film because that can't be what it looks like. And then I watched game film and it was what I thought it was. So then I watched more game film and it continued to be what I thought it was. And then as we went through this process, looking at other guys and, Peyton Wilson out there running a 3.940 for a linebacker and, how just killing the pajama Olympics. And, I've never got off of Edgerring Cooper. I've seen people in our comments. I felt like when we first brought him up, man, it was people kind of like, whoa, like linebacker, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. And then I feel like as we've went on, people have kind of got on the Edgerring Cooper train with us. I think that Edgerring Cooper would be a great fit for the Detroit Lions. And I think when we did the episode, I even feel better about him now than I did then. Steve, if we drafted Edgerring Cooper at pick 29, would you be happy?
Would I be happy? Yes. Would my
Scale
bank
of 1 to
account?
10.
Probably a solid 9. A solid 9. I don't think my bank account would be happy because I'm probably going to buy a round of beers for whoever's around me. That's how much I like it. Here's a question, and I saw, we look at comments that you guys leave on some of our previous episodes, and I can't remember which episode it was, but we had mentioned Edgerring Cooper, and someone said, "Why would we draft another linebacker? We have Jack Campbell, Alex Anzalone, Derek Barnes." Edgerring Cooper, athletically, I don't want to say he's better than Jack Campbell, but because the jury's still out on that. But I think
I'll say it. I'll say it.
Yeah, I want to. I'm trying to walk the fine line here, William. I'm trying to keep all the parties involved very happy. But yeah, all right, yeah, I'll say he's more athletic than Jack Campbell. Linebacker is kind of looked at as like a dead, dying, not sexy position. What would he do on the Detroit Lions team? Make us faster.
Yeah,
makes us much, much faster. Derek Barnes, look, I get it. He had one of the greatest moments in Detroit Lions history in the last 30 years with the interception to send the Lions to the NFC Championship game. I'll never forget it. He's going into year 4. I think we kind of know what we have with Derek Barnes. I think he is what he is. I'm not knocking it. It's just I don't see him getting better. I think what he is what he is. Like he's a role player, a guy you kind of cycle in and out when one of the other guys needs a blow, which is usually Jack Campbell. Alex Anzalone usually stays on the field. But Edgerring Cooper is just a different style of linebacker than all three of what we have.
I agree. I say all 4. Even 5 if we start talking about German. I was going to say Malcolm Rodriguez, but I think that Edgerring Cooper is a guy that enhances our linebacker room. And that's what we're trying to do. When we're talking about best player available, I think that...
I'm glad you mentioned that because I got something when you're done. I wasn't going to bring it up, but I'm glad you did.
Yeah. I think that he could very well be the best player available at pick 29 overall. I think that Edgerring Cooper enhances us as far as our scheme as well because of his position versatility. People look at Edgerring Cooper and they think linebacker, and they talk about him playing linebacker. They talk about him playing on the inside like he did in college. But if you don't watch game film and you just watch the highlights, you see a lot of him playing on the inside, a lot of him blitzing from the inside. But people don't understand that he played the edge too, and he rushed off the edge. And that's something that I think that when we talk about what Charles Harris was trying to do, I think he immediately steps into that role and enhances it. What James Houston was trying to do, I think he steps into that role and enhances it. He plays the game a little bit differently than James Houston or Charles Harris, but he's a guy that could offer pressure off of the edge, but he's also a guy that could run with some of these slot receivers, can definitely run with running backs and tight ends. And those are things that Charles Harris and James Houston had a very, very hard times with. So I think that when we talk about scheme, and wanting to have maybe Jack Campbell and Alex Anzalone on the inside and then have that outside edge rusher slash hybrid player. I think Edric Cooper gets the job done. I think that he can win that edge but with speed, or if you release a running back, he can run with them, and he can play in coverage. He can play in that drop four cover three, that four under. He can have um man-to-man coverage with running with some of these athletes. He's got that type of freakish athletic ability. I think that he is by far the most versatile and top choice at linebacker. I think any of the other linebackers, when you're talking about Junior Colson and you're talking about Peyton Wilson, while they do offer, Peyton Wilson offers some things too that are special. I think that it's not a good fit for the Detroit Lions. I look at Wilson unless you're going to move some guys around and you're going to let him play inside. If you're not gonna have Wilson on the edge. Junior Colson, I think, is a guy that could fit that Sam linebacker position, but could he do it to the level of an Edgerring Cooper? And does he offer the things that Edgerring Cooper offers? I think it'll be a step down from Edgerring Cooper. He's a guy that I'm looking at as someone who could be wearing a gold jacket at the end of his career. He's a special guy, and I think that's the difference.
Build the statue, huh?
When you watch him play downhill, it's special, man. It's special. He can beat you with his hands. He can beat you with his feet. The way that his instincts are coming downhill, the way he reads the guards in the center and understands the blocking schemes going on in front of him. He's a smart football player that also has freakish athletic ability and position versatility. It would be a no-brainer. The only worry for me is this. What the Detroit Lions did with Jack Campbell last year, I think teams watch, right? And the Lions, whether you want to believe it or not, the Lions are doing some things that are ahead of the NFL. They're trending, they're leading some trends in the NFL. And I wouldn't be surprised if somebody tries to grab Edgerring Cooper earlier than they might have in prior drafts because of what we saw as the importance at the linebacker position. Everybody said that we were crazy when we drafted Jack Campbell. Look at what happened with the guys that we drafted and the positions that we drafted. So I think you might see some teams that, like Edgerring Cooper, draft him a little bit earlier than they normally would have.
I'm glad you brought up best position available, William. We're going to have a conversation about that real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Best player available.
Yeah.
Edgerring Cooper is the number one linebacker in this class. It's not close. Peyton Wilson, very nice player. The best linebacker in this class, Edgerring Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
The Lions are on the clock, and this is all up to Brad Holmes. This is Brad Holmes' job, not Steve Perkins, not Will Ford. This is up to Brad Holmes. If he has a linebacker as the best position available or best player available compared to a third-ranked tight end or third-ranked corner, third-ranked wide receiver, guard, whatever it is, if he has a linebacker ranked higher than all of those positions where guys have already been drafted, you're talking about, you're probably going to have some wide receivers already gone. You're going to have some corners already gone. You're not getting the cream of the crop. If he looks at the board and says Edgerring Cooper's there, third-ranked offensive lineman, whatever it may be, that's the best player available. That might be the pick. So You guys can't have your cake and eat it too and say, oh, Brad Holmes is going to draft best player available. It might be Edgerring Cooper. He's the best at his position compared to possibly a Kool-Aid McKinstry, who Brad might have ranked as his fourth best corner. So what would Brad do in that scenario? If it's best player available, welcome to Detroit, Edgerring Cooper, because that's going to be the pick if that's what you guys are sold on. So you can't come here and say, well, he's going to draft best player available, and then say, well, he doesn't fit the Detroit Lions. He's a linebacker. We already have 2 linebackers. That's how the board falls. That's the way the cookie crumbles. That's probably going to end up being the pick, and I'm more than okay with it.
I don't think that he's just a linebacker, and I think that's what
No,
is
no, no,
gonna,
me neither.
and I think that's what's going to be the difference maker too. I think that he could potentially solve some of the problems that we've been talking about, and I say we, a good strong amount of the fan base with us has talked about wanting an edge rusher. So if you're telling me that Dallas Turner, Latu, and Verse are gone, right, and my other options are Chop, Braylon Trice, these guys and that guys in that class, or even going a tier down. Or you're telling me maybe I can go get the best linebacker in the draft who is going to be able to offer me a little bit of edge production as well, who's going to be able to immediately do what James Houston and Charles Harris couldn't do. I got to take a strong look at that. I think that Edgerring Cooper comes in and contributes immediately, and in those positions, I seen nothing against James Houston, but when he was in situations to where he was on that edge and he was asked to go play zone coverage or chase running backs, he struggled, man. He struggled. That's just not what he's really good at. He's a guy that needs to be blitzing or rushing off of that edge. That's what he truly wants to do. When you ask him to go back there in coverage, he looks like a fish out of water. Not saying that he can't take a step forward, pulling for him to take a step forward, but that's something that Edgerring Cooper can already do. He can already do that. Day one, he's going to be able to do it. He plays the game with just a recklessness, a relentlessness, and he also has a high football IQ because you can see the speed at which he's pulling the trigger to these run plays is special, man. It's special. You're not seeing it out of too many other guys. There was a guy last year that I really liked that wasn't high on a lot of people's draft boards, but when I watched the film, I really liked him. Out of Alabama, Henry Toa, and he wasn't a guy that had super fast times at the combine or anything like that, but his instincts, man, his instincts where he was coming downhill quick. And I think that Edgerring Cooper's already fast. He's faster than Henry is, but his instincts plus his speed and athleticism is what's really going to, I think, push him over the edge. I think if we could get him here and give him a simple role to start off with and let him grow into being something special, I think that's the way to do it. Get him in there with somebody like Alex Anzalone, who knows all the calls, who gets us in the right checks all the time, somebody that he could learn from, a great veteran who's I think has 2 years left on his contract. So let him go through his finish out his career as a Detroit Lion and turn this thing over to Edgerring Cooper and Jack Campbell. And in the meantime, let Edgerring Cooper contribute where he can. I think that would be a recipe for something special, and we still can go get the other things that we need. There's a ton of linemen out here. Guys know that I'm big on these offensive linemen in this draft. There's a ton of them. I'm probably going to go grab a lineman in the second round at that point, or trade up to a little bit earlier in the second round to get one if one slides, like the Jackson Power Johnson, Zach Frazier's, Mason McCormick's, those guys. But there's multiple of those guys. There's 6 to 8 guards that I like, and a couple of tackles that I like in later on in the draft. There is one linebacker like Edgerring Cooper. There's one in this draft.
Yeah, that's what I was
And
saying.
yeah, so when you get the opportunity to grab him, I think that if he's there at pick 29, for me, he is a guy who I keep in the same class as Latu, as Verse, as Dallas Turner. And these are guys that are going to be some of the strongest players at their positions in a draft. Best player available at a area of need, to me, when I look at the draft board, I don't know how you don't draft Edgerring Cooper, because what's the alternative? Grab a receiver. There's a ton of these receivers that I like. Shoot, there's a couple of them that's been growing on me. I've been falling in love with them. But when I truly think about this thing, we had a top 5 offense with pretty much the same offense coming back, except DPJ is stepping in for Josh Reynolds. Do I need to freak out about losing Josh Reynolds' production? I don't think I need to freak out about that. I think that DPJ, if I don't get anybody, is going to be more than serviceable. So what would be more important to me, to add an Edgerring Cooper to my defense or add a receiver to my offense? You know what I'm saying? So I just think that Edgerring Cooper, a potential to get somebody that could be wearing a gold jacket at the end of their career. Not saying that that he will, but I'm saying that he has some awesome traits. Man, if I'm Chris Spielman, I'm going, hey, Brad, Edgerring.
Who know? Do you think Chris Spielman knows anything about playing linebacker? Maybe a little bit.
He maybe knows a little bit. You think Dan Campbell happens to know anything about Texas A&M?
Nah, maybe like a tad. Like he's probably caught a game or two.
So
You know, he probably doesn't have like any inside tracks like the coaching staff, or like no text messages being sent or phone calls being made. Maybe even some emails. I don't know, but yeah, there might be some inside information. What I look at the Lions and what we struggled with is, and what the NFL is going to, is these mobile quarterbacks. It just seems like we're one of the last teams. This isn't a golf episode, but we're one of the last teams with the dying breed of pocket passers, gunslingers, whatever you want to call them. Like Jared Goff is what he is. He's a pocket passer. The NFL doesn't have too many of those left in the league. Everyone's getting these quarterbacks that can scramble, run, at the very least extend plays. Mm-hmm. What would Edgerring Cooper do? I'm not letting you extend plays. I'm closing the gap. I was just watching his highlight film and some tape before we got on here, and what he was doing to Alabama and Jalen Milroe, who's a very mobile quarterback. We should be a little familiar with him if you're a Michigan Wolverines fan. Big, mobile quarterback that can run, physical. They were using him as a spy. Now, don't get it twisted and say that I'm drafting Edgerring Cooper just so that he can spy a quarterback. That's not what I'm saying, but it's just another tool in his arsenal. I was watching Jalen Milroe take a snap. Edgerring Cooper watching, 1, 2, spying, I'm gone. He's not passing, I'm flying. I'm getting in there, I'm making a play. I can see he's not passing, I'm closing in, making a play, tackle for loss. At one point in the SEC, one of the powerhouses of college football, Edgerring Cooper was leading the SEC for tackles for loss. He's an athletic kid. He's not overly powerful, 6'2", 6'3", 230 pounds. He's not the first guy off the bus, but he's athletic. He can make plays. I'm tired of watching Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields when he was here, Brock Purdy, run the football, just cripple our defense, extend drives, extend plays. Let's get some guys with some speed. And I'm not saying we don't already have some guys with speed, but I think you could put him on the edge. You can rush him. You could drop him into coverage. He's not a linebacker. He's listed as a linebacker. He's a football player.
He is.
He's a weapon on defense. He's kind of like a Brian Branch. Like he could do a lot of different things. I'm not saying like he's playing safety or nickel slot or anything like that, but he could do a lot of different defensive stuff. And that's why I think he's kind of like Brian Branch, because they can both do different things and not have a position label them.
It's scary to think of when we talk about positionless football. It's scary to think of guys like Brian Branch, Ife Melifonwu, right? Edgerring Cooper, and then even Jack Campbell. Right? It's scary to think about and then when I think about our defense and what it does, okay, the addition of DJ Reader is going to require 2 grown men to deal with him, right? Which is going to free up some space for some linebackers, right? So Dan Campbell had mentioned something that I thought was interesting and that I agree with, and it was setting an edge that sends plays back to Aiden Hutchinson. So when I think about this thing, and I think about Aleem McNeil and DJ Reader in the middle of this thing, then I think about potentially having Jack Campbell, who I've watched just come downhill and be physical with guards and centers. He's not getting run over by these guards and centers. He's running dead smack into them and either stalemating them or striking them and getting rid of them. What does that mean? That means that you could potentially have Reader and Aleem having guys like Jack coming free, right? You could have Aiden rushing for one side, and then you could have Edgerring Cooper at Sam linebacker. So when these guys go to scramble, are you going to run at Edgerring Cooper? I trust Edgerring Cooper to run you down on that side. Huh. Okay. Are you going to step up in the pocket at DJ Reader? If he happens to
be careful with your next step, because DJ Reader's right there.
Yeah. And if you have 2 grown men dealing with him, where's Jack at? What's Jack doing? Right. Are you going out the back door and
Mm.
dealing with Aleem and Aiden on the other side? I mean, I just think it just fits, man. It just fits. There's a few guys to me. I'm not gonna drop the names. I'm sure if you watched all the episodes, it's starting to paint a picture, but there's a few guys that just fit in Honolulu Blue. That situation just fits to me. There's times where we have that quote unquote five front where we have, and there's a lot of them where we have, and it starts with Aiden Hutchinson. You'll see Aleem McNeil, you'll see DJ Reader, you might see Marcus Davenport, and then you might see a Sam linebacker on the edge. Edgerring Cooper could be, you know what I mean? So then you got Jack Campbell in the middle of this thing, right? With Anzalone. I mean, or there's times where we just have a middle linebacker. So maybe you either have Anzalone back in there in a passing situation, or you got Jack Campbell being long. It's a lot. I think that
Possibilities are endless. I can see
and
your wheels spinning with just all
yeah,
the options.
yeah. There's just so much scheme that you can do, man. And you're still talking about Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph and Iffy Melifonwu. It's the things that you could do. And then people getting banged up. You still got Derek Barnes. You still got Malcolm Rodriguez. You still got Germ. It's just adding that piece, man, could be something that's really, really, really a problem. And it keeps us from reaching. Then you don't necessarily have to go and reach up to the late teens or the early 20s to try to go get Latu, right? You stay at 29, get your guy, and then just go on with the draft with all of your pieces, or you lump up some of those pieces to move up in the second round, right? And maybe get one of these receivers that you like, or maybe get the guard that you like that's still available. You know what I mean? It's just I think that Edgerring Cooper, if available at pick 29, maybe there's 2 rounds purchased by all the people around us or for the people around us, because after you buy one, I'm probably going to buy the next one, because I would be overjoyed, man, to see him in Honolulu Blue.
Yeah, I just want to keep stressing that best player available. Like I said, it's really up to Brad. It's Brad's mock draft, or his draft. We're all just mocking over here. However, he has these guys ranked is what it's going to come down to. But if the Detroit Lions are on the clock and Edgerring Cooper's there, and you're looking at a 5th ranked corner, a 6th ranked wide receiver, a 4th ranked tackle or guard, the best player available, who is listed as a linebacker, but he could do a lot of other things, is going to be possibly, more than likely, Edgerring Cooper, not a deep linebacker class. So we've been hammering it all night, guys. Best player available. He could do a lot of things. He solved some pass rush issues. He solved some coverage issues. He's kind of that Swiss Army knife. We've seen Brad do that before. Jahmyr Gibbs, not just a running back. He can catch passes. Brian Branch, not just a safety. He can play slot as well. We're going to see a lot of different players. This is something that Brad Holmes has already done in the past, where he drafts guys who can do multiple things. So I think we should really start getting our heads wrapped around the fact that if that's the route he's going, best player available, guy who could play multiple positions, who fits that mold better than Edgerring Cooper? Leave some comments down below. Hit that like button. If you're new here, stick around, subscribe. We'll be back later with some more content.